After my rebirth, the first thing I did was submit my application to study abroad, just to put as much distance as possible between me and Ryan. In my past life, I gave up my career for him. I dedicated my youth to him, bore his children, and spent my entire life managing our home. Yet, on his deathbed, his final wish was to divorce me, so he could be buried with his first love, Lily, and their 2 children. He even knelt before me, pleading with me to grant him this last request, to let him and Lily reunite in death as if they were some tragic, star-crossed lovers. I was utterly devastated, my heart broken beyond repair. I fell into depression and withered away. I never expected to wake up and find myself back in time, before my marriage to Ryan had even happened. This time, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. When my study abroad application was approved, Sonia was so shocked that she spilled her coffee all over the table. I quickly pulled out a few napkins and handed them to her, but she didn't even bother to clean up the mess. She just stared at me, her expression filled with disbelief. "Aren't you about to get married? Have you even discussed this with Professor Carter?" Just last week, I had been excitedly sharing wedding plans with her, and now I was suddenly preparing to leave the country. It was indeed abrupt. The name Ryan Carter was like a thin needle, piercing my heart ever so lightly, yet the pain lingered. His image surfaced in my mind, sharp brows, a high-bridged nose, and that ever-present, subtle indifference. He was the youngest professor at the university, a research prodigy, widely admired. His lectures were always packed, filled with students who came just to catch a glimpse of him. But he ignored them all, until he met me. Everyone envied me for being the woman he chose to marry, but only I knew the truth. What he saw in me was the shadow of someone else. Lowering my gaze, I spoke calmly. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for further studies. I don't want to miss it. The wedding will have to wait." Before leaving, I asked Sonia not to tell Ryan about my plans. Things were still uncertain, and I was worried he might interfere. Though, in all honesty, his mind was completely preoccupied with Lily now, and he probably had no time to care about me. Ryan and I met 2 years ago when I first started working as a lecturer. He was already a well-respected professor, and I fell for him at first sight. He responded to my advances, and soon we naturally became a couple. Ryan was not the romantic type. He was quiet, reserved, and never said sweet words. At most, he would occasionally stare at me in a daze. Back then, I didn't think much of it. I assumed that was simply how he expressed affection. It wasn't until much later that I realized, at certain angles, my face resembled Lily's. We had been together for 2 years, our relationship stable, already discussing marriage. I had been eagerly preparing for our wedding, choosing the date, picking out my dress, planning everything with excitement. Then Lily showed up with her son. That was when I learned Ryan had a first love. They had been together for 7 years, from high school through college, before eventually going their separate ways. And just like in my past life, Lily appeared, her face streaked with tears, sobbing about how her husband was abusive. She begged Ryan for help. And just like before, he became completely absorbed in her problems. He found her and her son a place to stay, hired a lawyer to help with her divorce, and did everything he could to support her. But he had no time to help me pick out my wedding dress. In the end, I planned the entire wedding alone. On the day of the ceremony, he merely showed up, going through the motions. After we got married, he received an opportunity to study abroad. And Lily, under the guise of gratitude, followed him there. But I was forced to stay home and take care of my mother-in-law after she had a stroke. From then on, Ryan and I became like strangers, barely spending time together. Later, I gave birth to our son and daughter. Our daughter was born weak and required extra care, so I had to devote even more of my time and energy to her. I gave up my career entirely, eventually resigning from my job. I confined myself to a small world, dedicating everything to my family, giving my all without hesitation. And yet, while I was home tending to our children, Ryan was traveling with Lily, watching the northern lights in Iceland, seeing penguins in Alaska. I cried, I fought, but all I got in return was his cold, dismissive response. "Can you stop acting like a shrew?" Even the children I had raised with my own hands began to look down on me. Because I had been a housewife all my life, they found me embarrassing, saying I could never compare to Aunt Lily's grace and sophistication. They claimed that their highly educated, knowledgeable father and the elegant, cultured Lily were a better match. I never imagined that I would raise such ungrateful children. Later, when Ryan fell seriously ill, his final wish before dying was to divorce me, so that after death he could be buried alongside Lily. Even my children urged me to grant their so-called star-crossed lovers their final wish. But I refused. I had poured my heart and soul into this family, given everything I had, worked myself to exhaustion to the point of falling ill. Once, when my daughter had a high fever that wouldn't break, I stayed up all night by her bedside, and by morning, my hair had turned white from the stress. How could I just let it all go? What gave them the right to demand such a thing from me? I held firm, refusing to let go. Lily fell ill from distress, and her son, furious on her behalf, broke into my house in the middle of the night to threaten me. In his rage, he lost control, and the knife in his hand plunged straight into my heart. I collapsed to the ground, my vision fading. In my final moments, I truly felt regret. My life should have been brilliant. I should never have given up my career. I should never have spent my life tolerating and accommodating others. But fortunately, I was given another chance. I was reborn, back to the time before I married Ryan Carter. It wasn't too late. When I returned home from the university, I found the apartment empty. This place belonged to Ryan. Since we were engaged, I had moved in with him, but we never took our relationship further. We had separate rooms, living under the same roof, without crossing any boundaries. Normally, at this hour, Ryan would already be home, sitting in his study, elegantly reading a book while waiting for me to prepare dinner. But today, he wasn't here. It wasn't hard to guess where he had gone. Lily had shown up several days ago. Lately, he had been running around, busy taking care of her problems. In my past life, I would have been anxious, paranoid, restless. But now, I felt nothing. I opened the fridge, took out some ingredients, and began cooking for myself. The fresh steak sizzled in the pan, turning golden brown on both sides. I drizzled it with my special sauce, filling the kitchen with a rich, savory aroma. A small celebration for the freedom I was about to reclaim. I deliberately went into the room to grab a bottle of champagne, but before I could even pop the cork, the front door swung open. Ryan had returned, and, unsurprisingly, he wasn't alone. Behind him were Lily and her son, Leo. Even though Ryan had already rented an apartment for Lily elsewhere, she still frequently came over. But this time, the three of them were wearing matching outfits, family-style clothes. Like a real family. Leo clutched a handful of toys and balloons in his small hands. The three of them had been laughing and chatting, but as soon as they saw me, the laughter came to an abrupt halt. Ryan hesitated for a moment, seemingly uncomfortable, then offered an explanation. Leo said he's never been to an amusement park with his dad before, so I took him today. Hope you don't mind, Sophia. I lifted my gaze and asked, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, are you his father now? Ryan was momentarily speechless, unsure how to respond. Lily stepped forward looking aggrieved. Sophia, I'm sorry. It was my idea to have Ryan take Leo out. If you're upset, blame me instead. I turned my head away, unwilling to waste more time on them. There was no need to argue. It wasn't worth it, so I simply chuckled lightly. Relax, it's just a joke. I don't mind. The atmosphere instantly grew awkward. At that moment, Leo ran over to the dining table, his eyes lighting up at the sight of my meal. Steak. I want some, he exclaimed, reaching out for the plate. I quickly lifted it out of his reach. No, I said flatly. This isn't for you. Leo immediately burst into loud sobs. Lily hurriedly picked him up, wiping away his tears while saying softly, Sophia, are we not welcome here? Maybe we should stop coming over for meals. Ryan frowned and looked at me. It's just a meal. Do you have to be so petty? The kid likes your cooking, why not make a little more? It's not like we can't afford it. After saying that, he took Leo from Lily's arms and sighed. Come on, buddy. Uncle will take you out to eat. With that, the three of them turned and left. As they walked out, Lily shot me a smug, taunting glance. I remained indifferent. After they were gone, I finally popped the champagne. With a loud pop, the cork flew off and bubbles foamed at the rim of the bottle. I poured myself a glass. Ryan hadn't even noticed that I hadn't cooked dinner for him either. I glanced at the digital calendar on the wall. 30 days. Just 30 more days, and I could walk away from him completely. I raised my glass in a silent toast to my long-awaited freedom. No more tolerance. No more hesitation. From this moment on, I was reborn. After dinner, I rested for a bit before heading out. I still had an afternoon class to teach. Even though I would be leaving soon, I still needed to finish my responsibilities properly. After my lecture, I went home briefly. Ryan still wasn't back. I grabbed my bank card and headed to the mall. I was an orphan. No parents, no family. I had grown up under my uncle's care, but his family had never treated me well. They made me do chores every day, kept me half-starved, and refused to pay for my education. But when I was in elementary school, I met someone who changed my life, Mr. Robert Zhao, my teacher. He was my savior. When I didn't have enough food, he would secretly bring me extra meals. When he saw that I struggled in class, he took the time to tutor me. When I couldn't afford tuition in middle school, he supported me financially. All these years, I had regarded him as my closest family. I had never told my uncle's family about my marriage to Ryan. The only person I had told was Mr. Zhao. Now that I was calling off the wedding, it was only right that I inform him. Besides, I hadn't seen him in a long time. I missed him. I decided to visit him. Before that, I planned to buy him some gifts. At the mall, I carefully selected practical gifts: American ginseng, Ijiao supplements, warm scarves, and knee protectors. As I passed by the luxury stores, I saw Ryan. Beside him, Lily was holding a designer silk handbag. I didn't approach them. Instead, I instinctively stepped further away. If Ryan wanted to spend money on her, so be it. After all, it wasn't my money. Ryan's family was just an average middle-class household, while Lily's husband came from a wealthy background. Though he was abusive, he never let her lack money. Lily had always been extravagant with her spending. In my past life, Ryan only became financially successful after studying abroad and helping a struggling company on the verge of bankruptcy. He invested in it, became a shareholder, and only then did he truly become wealthy. But this life, a lot of things were bound to be different. Ryan came home late that night. "I had an evening class," he said, vaguely offering an explanation. I knew it was a lie, but I didn't call him out on it. There was no need. He knew that mentioning Lily would upset me, so instead of admitting the truth, he avoided the topic altogether. And since he didn't want to invite conflict, why should I waste my energy on it? I quietly sipped my milk. Lately, I'd been having trouble sleeping, so I developed a habit of drinking warm milk before bed. After a long pause, Ryan finally spoke again. "I know you don't like how close I am with Lily." He started hesitantly. "But she's a helpless woman. She's already suffered enough from domestic abuse. Now that she's come to me for help, how could I just ignore her?" "It's not just about her," he continued. "If anyone else came to me in need, I would do the same." I remained silent. Ryan shook his head, as if resigning himself to something. "If it really bothers you that much, I'll try to keep my distance from her in the future." Then, as if trying to smooth things over, he said goodnight and pulled out a small gift bag from behind him. I opened it and saw a bottle of perfume. Looking slightly uncomfortable, he muttered, I spoke too harshly this morning. Consider this an apology. I haven't really bought you any expensive gifts before, and this perfume suits you." I glanced at the bottle for a moment before offering a polite smile and accepting it. I had never worn perfume before. How could he possibly know what suited me? Seeing me accept the gift, Ryan seemed relieved, as if he had resolved something. He looked like he wanted to say more, but before he could, I cut him off. "I'm tired. I'll be heading to bed." I turned and walked away. He hesitated for a moment but didn't say anything else. Back in my room, I didn't go to sleep right away. Instead, I started packing. Since I had already made up my mind to leave, there was no point in leaving my things here any longer. I didn't have much, just a few books and daily necessities. After all, I hadn't lived here for long. I carefully set aside the most important items and packed my clothes into my suitcase. Anything unnecessary, I simply discarded. It wasn't until I had finished organizing everything that I finally drifted into a deep sleep. Because I had gone to bed late, I woke up later than usual the next morning. A knock on my door pulled me out of my sleep. Ryan never used to be this formal with me, but ever since Lily showed up, he had started keeping his distance. I opened the door and looked at him questioningly. Looking slightly awkward, he said, I noticed you weren't up yet. I thought you might not be feeling well, so I went out and got breakfast. That was unexpected. Normally, I was the one who cooked. He rarely paid attention to things like this. I was about to leave the room when I noticed his gaze shift. His expression tensed as he suddenly stepped in front of me. "You're packing. Are you leaving?" My heart tightened slightly. Ryan had noticed that my room was much emptier than before. My suitcase was already out, filled with clothes. That's why he was asking. I had been keeping my departure a secret because my study abroad application hadn't been officially approved yet. I didn't want to risk anything going wrong. Until everything was confirmed, I had no intention of telling him. So I went along with the excuse I had prepared. "I just wanted to visit Mr. Zhao," I said casually. "It's been a while since I've seen him, and I miss him." Ryan knew about my past and understood how important Mr. Zhao was to me. I had always made occasional visits to see him, so my reason was completely believable. "Oh, I see." Ryan's expression relaxed, and he didn't question me further. Ryan smiled. "Since we're about to get married, it makes sense for you to visit. If Mr. Zhao is willing, we can even invite him here." At the dining table, I noticed the breakfast spread: soup, dumplings, and lotus leaf porridge, both my favorites. It seemed Ryan had put in some effort today. The two of us ate in silence, but the atmosphere was unexpectedly warm. For a brief moment, it felt like things had gone back to the way they were before Lily appeared. Back then, there were no cracks between us. We were in love, looking forward to building a home together. Then Ryan suddenly said, "Why don't I go with you?" I froze, not having expected that. Before I could respond, his phone rang. Lily's panicked voice came through the speaker. "Ryan, my husband found us. I'm so scared. He's right outside. Please come save us." Ryan's expression changed instantly. He grabbed his coat and rushed out the door. Once he was gone, I let out a relieved sigh. That saved me from having to come up with an excuse. If I let things unfold naturally, Ryan would eventually marry me as planned. But I didn't want that. I refused to repeat the same mistakes. I finished my breakfast at a leisurely pace, then sent him a quick text before grabbing my suitcase and heading to the airport. 5 hours later, I saw Mr. Zhao. His hair had turned completely white. Compared to my childhood memories, his home hadn't changed much. He had divorced his husband when he was young and had no children of his own. I was just one of the many students he had supported over the years. But he always said that we were all his children. When I was little, I often came to his house. He would cook for me, tutor me, and take care of me. I had no parents, but to me, he was like a mother. Now that I was back, I told him about my decision. As I spoke, memories from my past life resurfaced: the pain, the injustice, the silent suffering. In my previous life, I had always hidden my hardships from him, letting him believe I was living a good life. But this time, I had chosen a different path. I wanted his blessing. Mr. Zhao listened quietly, his smile never fading. When I finished, he patted my hand gently and said, "You've worked so hard to come this far. I just hope you won't let anyone or anything hold you back. Stay true to yourself." Tears streamed down my face. I stayed at Mr. Zhao's house for 5 days. Since I was about to leave the country, it wouldn't be easy to visit him again. During my stay, Ryan called, asking when I'd be back so we could set a date to pick out wedding dresses. I took another leave of absence from the university, delaying things as much as possible. With each passing day, the date on the calendar inched closer. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. I returned home in good spirits. But my mood soured the moment I stepped into my room. At some point while I was gone, someone else's clothes and personal items had been placed inside. My belongings had been shoved into a corner, some of them stained with melted ice cream. I had already guessed what had happened, and right on cue, Ryan and the others arrived home. He was holding Leo's hand, laughing and chatting as they walked in, with Lily beside them. They looked like a perfect happy family. And I was the outsider. "You're Ban," said, surprised to see me. Lily immediately put on a timid, apologetic look. "Hi, Sophia," she greeted softly. I kept my expression cold. Sensing the tension, Lily quickly shrank back, stepping behind Ryan as if she had done something wrong. She tugged at his sleeve, looking helpless. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then said, somewhat awkwardly, "Lily's husband came looking for her again. She was scared to be alone." I let them stay here for 2 days, Ryan explained. You weren't home, and the room was empty, so I let them use it. Lily and Leo stayed in your room. There are moments when you're so speechless that all you can do is laugh. Of all the excuses, this was the best he could come up with. In this day and age, who brings people into their home when hotels exist? There are plenty of hotels with security guards. They would have been more than capable of handling her husband. Staying in a hotel would have been much safer than hiding in the home of a mild-mannered professor. And besides, it's not like she didn't have a phone. If they wanted to stay in my room, if they were going to touch my things, they could have at least called me. Had they just given me a heads up, I wouldn't have been this angry. But instead, they didn't say a word. They simply threw my belongings aside and moved in. At that moment, Ryan and Lily also noticed the stain on my things, melted ice cream. Ryan frowned slightly. Noticing his reaction, Lily quickly stepped forward, her voice soft and pitiful. Sophia, I'm so sorry, she said. Leo accidentally got ice cream on your things. I apologize on his behalf. She lowered her head, her voice trembling. I don't have any money right now, but when I do, I promise I'll pay you back. She looked like she was on the verge of tears, as if I was the one bullying her. Ryan's frown deepened, but this time it was directed at me. He's just a kid. There's no need to hold a grudge, Ryan said. It's not like your things were that important, and Lily already apologized. What more do you want? As he spoke, he reached for my suitcase. Why don't you just stay in my room tonight? You just got back, let's not make things unpleasant. My heart sank. Here we go again. It was always the same. Every time I had a conflict with Lily, I was the one being unreasonable. I was the one making a fuss. I was the one who had to tolerate, to back down, to be the bigger person. But why? Why should I be the one to endure everything? I stepped aside, avoiding his outstretched hand. His fingers hovered mid-air for a moment before he looked at me in confusion. I met his gaze head-on. First, I said calmly, I decide whether my things are important, not you. Second, just because she apologized doesn't mean I have to accept it, and I don't. Third, I have no interest in sharing a room with you. With that, I grabbed my suitcase and walked out. Ryan stood there in stunned silence for a moment before calling after me. Sophia? I didn't look back. There was no reason for us to live together in the first place. Only 19 days left. In 19 days, I would finally be free. I booked a hotel and took a cab there. Since I hadn't even unpacked my suitcase yet, I didn't have to waste time gathering my things. Ryan called me several times, but I blocked his number. That night, I had the best sleep I'd had in a long time. The next day, I went to campus as usual. Everything was going smoothly until the end of class. A commotion broke out outside the lecture hall. A student ran in excitedly. Professor Carter is here, Miss Sophia, they announced, barely able to contain their enthusiasm. I turned my head, and sure enough, Ryan was standing just outside the door, gazing at me gently. Oh my God, Professor Carter is so handsome. Did he come to pick up Miss Sophia? They're getting married soon, right? How romantic. I frowned. I knew how popular Ryan was on campus. His lectures were always packed, sometimes even drawing students from other departments. When we first started dating, I had even received threatening letters from some of his more obsessive admirers. Because of that, we had always kept our relationship low profile. We avoided being seen together at school, made sure to arrive and leave separately. But today, for the first time, he had come looking for me in public. Suppressing my irritation, I walked over to him. Let's go, I said curtly. He smiled and naturally took my bag, then, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, reached for my hand. I wanted to shake him off. But I didn't want to create unnecessary gossip. So, I endured it. Under the watchful eyes of countless students, we walked off campus together. Only once we were inside his car did I finally let out a breath. Only after getting into the car did I drop the fake smile from my face. Ryan pulled up to an intersection and sighed. Sophia, stop being difficult. You were never this unreasonable before, he said, his voice tinged with frustration. Everyone's worried about you. Lily didn't sleep at all last night. She kept telling me to come pick you up. Even Leo has been crying, saying he knows he was wrong and shouldn't have messed up your things. He'll apologize as soon as we get back. Ryan truly thought he was giving me an easy way out, a way to save face. but I only felt disappointment. I turned to look at him. Ryan, do you really think I'm acting like this just because of those incidents? He hesitated for a moment, silent. Then, after a long pause, he finally spoke. I know, you're upset about my relationship with Lily, he said, choosing his words carefully. But I promise you, there's nothing between us. I just feel sorry for her. That's why I'm helping her. But don't worry. I will marry you. I let out a cold laugh. He felt sorry for her. He would marry me. In his eyes, I had become the clingy woman desperately holding on to him, unwilling to let go. He truly believed everything I did was just to keep him from leaving me. To him, our marriage was nothing but charity. How utterly ridiculous. I didn't bother arguing. Ryan kept driving, heading straight for home, never once asking if I wanted to go back. Fine. There were still a few things I needed to retrieve from the house. Might as well take care of it all at once. We arrived at the house, but before we could enter, Ryan received a call. It was from the divorce lawyer he had hired for Lily. The documents had been finalized and delivered to the building's front desk. I'll go grab them real quick, he said. You go inside first, I won't be long. I didn't reply. I simply pushed the door open and stepped inside. Lily, hearing the noise, walked out of the kitchen holding a spatula. Ryan, Sophia, you're back. I made a lot of food as an apology for Sophia. Her words cut off when she saw I was alone. I smirked sarcastically. Drop the act, it's just me. Lily's expression shifted instantly. She rolled her eyes and turned back toward the kitchen. I couldn't be bothered to engage with her. I went straight to my room, intending to take my packed belongings and leave. But the moment I stepped inside, I froze. Leo was there, playing with something. He was holding a small clay bear and was about to pour water on it. My expression immediately darkened. Give it to me, I said firmly. Leo gripped the clay bear tighter and turned to glare at me. That wasn't just any toy. It was a handmade clay bear Mr. Zhao had given me when I was a child. I had never owned any toys growing up, so he had made one for me himself. It was the only gift I had from him. I had always kept it safe, displayed inside a glass case. And now, Leo had taken it out without permission. No, he yelled, puffing up his chest in defiance. Lily, hearing the commotion, walked in but made no effort to take the toy away from him. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, her voice dripping with condescension, Sophia, it's just a toy. What's the big deal? Let him play with it. I shot her a cold look before turning back to Leo. Give it to me, I repeated, my voice sharper this time. No, Leo screamed, his face twisting in anger. You're a mean, nasty woman. I won't give it to you. Then before I could stop him, he lifted the clay bear high above his head and smashed it onto the floor. The shattering sound echoed through the room. The clay bear broke into countless tiny pieces, scattering across the floor. You little. In a rush of anger, I shoved him. Not hard, just enough to push him back. He fell onto the floor with a thump, stunned for a moment. And that was the moment Ryan walked in. Leo let out an ear-piercing wail. Lily gasped dramatically and rushed to scoop him up, fussing over him as if he had just been gravely injured. Ryan immediately crouched down, checking Leo for injuries. Are you hurt? Did you hit your head? He asked anxiously. Once he was sure Leo was fine, he turned toward me, his expression dark with anger. Sophia, what the hell happened? He demanded. Why would you lay hands on a child? I ignored him. I was already crouched on the floor, carefully picking up the shattered remains of my clay bear. Ryan saw the broken pieces. He was smart. He should have been able to figure out exactly what had happened. He knew how much this clay bear meant to me. For a brief moment, his expression flickered. But before he could say anything, Lily, standing off to the side, let out a dramatic sigh. Sophia, Leo didn't mean to break it, she said, her voice full of feigned innocence. He's just a child. He probably thought it was just a regular toy. She clutched Leo tighter, her eyes welling up with tears. You shouldn't have pushed him, she continued. I mean, thankfully, nothing serious happened, but if he had really gotten hurt, I wouldn't know what to do. Then, as if on cue, she buried her face in her hands and started sobbing. Ryan's expression instantly softened, full of concern for her. I let out a cold laugh. A regular toy? I echoed. If it was just a regular toy, would I have displayed it in a glass case? I used to keep that clay bear locked away in a display case, but now it was shattered. And yet your son is perfectly fine. I haven't even started crying, yet Lily is already putting on a show. Leo, being just a child, didn't understand the weight of the situation. But Lily's expression turned slightly awkward, and Ryan's face showed a trace of guilt. He reached out as if to pull me back, but I stepped away, avoiding his touch. Grabbing the few belongings I had left, I turned and walked out the door. As I left, I caught a glimpse of the resentment in Lily's eyes. Perhaps realizing that I was truly upset this time, Ryan didn't force me to return. I stayed comfortably at the hotel, and the only time we saw each other was on campus. He continued his usual act, bringing me breakfast, giving me small gifts. To outsiders, we seemed like a loving couple. But I knew the truth. It was all for show. A few days later, Sonia called. "My application results are in," she said. "Come sign the papers." After signing, she pulled me aside with a curious expression. "Sophia, did you and Ryan break up?" I was caught off guard. "How do you know?" "It's all over campus," she said dramatically. Apparently, someone had anonymously posted on the school's forum, claiming that Ryan was living with another woman. There were even pictures, him and that woman grocery shopping together, looking intimate. The post was deleted quickly, but the rumors had already spread. I narrowed my eyes, thinking. Based on Sonia's description, the woman was obviously Lily. I hadn't been the one to expose it, and judging by Ryan's recent behavior around me, he likely had no idea either. In my past life, I had continued living with him, so this had never happened. Was this the butterfly effect from my decision to leave? It didn't matter. There were only 10 days left. In 10 days, I'd be gone. I gave Sonia a vague response and found an excuse to leave. The rumors about Ryan seemed to be getting worse. A few days later, even my colleagues started gossiping about it. Some students also began asking me questions after class. I ignored all of it. Then one night, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Half asleep, I answered groggily, only to hear Ryan's furious voice on the other end. "Sophia, I can't believe you would do this." I rubbed my temple, trying to wake up. "What? You know Lily and I are innocent, yet you went around spreading lies," he accused. "Because of you, people are insulting her. Are you happy now?" His voice was full of anger and frustration. "I already told you I would marry you. What more do you want?" The accusation stunned me for a moment. Then, everything clicked. Ryan must have heard the rumors and assumed that I was the one who started them. That was why he had called me in a panic, demanding an explanation. I didn't argue with him right away. Instead, I let him vent. Once he finally calmed down, I said evenly, "First of all, I did nothing. And I have no intention of proving myself to you. Believe whatever you want. As for who actually did it, there are plenty of ways to find out if you really care. Secondly," I paused, then said clearly, "I don't want your charity of a marriage." There was silence on the other end. "Sophia, what do you mean?" he asked, his voice uncertain. "Figure it out yourself." Without another word, I ended the call and blocked his number. Then, I went right back to sleep. After all, my study abroad plans were finalized. Ryan couldn't change anything now. Only 5 days left. 5 days, and I'd be free. The next morning, I finally learned what had really happened. It turned out that after the first anonymous post about Ryan spread online, some students, particularly those who idolized him, were furious and refused to believe it. One of his most devoted students took it upon herself to investigate. She wanted to prove his innocence, but the deeper she dug, the more she realized the rumors were true. Her world shattered. Betrayed and heartbroken, she turned from his biggest fan to his harshest critic. And this time, she posted everything she found. The new post included details about Ryan and Lily's connection, the timeline of when she started coming to see him, and the exact dates when I had moved out. The post was filled with disgust toward Ryan and sympathy for me. At the end, the student even apologized to me. She admitted that when she first found out I was with Ryan, she had insulted me. But now she finally saw him for what he was, a pathetic excuse for a man. She even tried to comfort me, telling me not to be sad. The post exploded on the school forum. Word spread that the school administration had called Ryan in for a meeting. No wonder he had lost his temper last night. This wasn't like him at all. But none of it had anything to do with me. I had already completed my work handover. I didn't even need to go to campus anymore. All I had to do now was prepare to leave the country. The 5 remaining days passed in the blink of an eye. The weather was beautiful on the day I went to the airport. What I hadn't expected, however, was to see Ryan there. He was waiting for me. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw. The first thing he did was apologize. He told me he had finally investigated the rumors, and he had discovered that the very first post had been made by Lily herself. After I left the house, Ryan had started trying to win me back, bringing me breakfast, giving me gifts. Lily had sensed the shift and panicked, so she had deliberately exposed their situation, hoping to pin the blame on me, to force Ryan's hand. She wanted to push him into choosing her completely. But she hadn't accounted for the student who dug too deep. Her plan had backfired spectacularly. Ryan's perfect image, the cold, untouchable professor, was shattered. Now, everyone saw him for what he really was, a man who still clung to his ex while stringing along his fiancée. And Lily, her schemes had crumbled. Ryan told me he had finally seen her for who she was. He had already cut ties with her. At the end of his explanation, his eyes were red. "Sophia, I regret everything," he said. "Can you forgive me?" Without hesitation, I let go of his hand and boarded my flight. Looking out at the vast blue sky, I smiled. I was above the clouds now. And from here on out, my life would be just like this. Free, limitless. Years passed. I had long since left that chapter of my life behind. I built a successful career abroad, made genuine friendships, and experienced the kind of love that wasn't tainted by betrayal. Everything I had once lost, I regained, and even more. As for Ryan and Lily, their fate unfolded just as they had sown. Ryan never truly recovered from the scandal. His once pristine reputation as a young, talented professor had been permanently stained. The university didn't fire him, but he was no longer admired. Students avoided him, colleagues treated him with polite indifference, and every time his name was mentioned, it carried a hint of mockery. No one wanted to be associated with a man who couldn't even sort out his own personal life. Eventually, he left the school, hoping for a fresh start elsewhere. But no matter where he went, the shadow of his past followed. Without his academic prestige, without his carefully curated image, he was just another ordinary man. As for Lily, her downfall came even swifter. After Ryan cut ties with her, she had no choice but to return to the man she once despised, her abusive husband. But this time, she had no Ryan to run to, no one to play the role of her savior. Her past manipulations had alienated everyone, and when she reached out for help, all she received was cold indifference. No one believed in her innocence anymore. Even her son, Leo, grew distant over the years, realizing that his mother's tears were just another tool of deception. She lived the rest of her life trapped in a cycle of regret, a prisoner of her own making. The poetic justice of it all? Neither Ryan nor Lily ended up with each other. In the end, the two of them, who once tried to orchestrate my downfall, were left with nothing but the ruins of their own choices. And me? I thrived, because I had chosen myself.